Good morning, Microeconomics200. My name is Byron Nathanson. I am one of the presenters this week for Choice Behaviour and Uncertainty Part 1. I will be discussing presentation question 1, which relates to the theory of risk aversion and how this impacts upon the decision-making process. Risk is a natural part of life. It is a word we use to describe uncertainty. There are plenty of everyday choices you make where you are dealing with risk and uncertainty and arrive at an outcome where the benefits outweigh the risks. As the textbook states, to describe risk quantitatively, we begin by listing all the possible outcomes of a particular action or event, as well as the likelihood that each outcome will occur. So this means an event can have however many possible outcomes, but each of these outcomes will have its relative probability. Probability being the likelihood that a given outcome will occur. In knowing this, it will allow us to give each choice an expected value, and it's from this that we can then ascertain the riskiness of the choice and its values. It gives us an equation that looks something like this. Expected value equals probability of event 1 times outcome 1 plus probability of event 2 times outcome 2. Building on this, we are then able to identify the risk related to the choice. We do this by finding the variability of the outcomes. The variability is the extent to which the possible outcomes of an uncertain situation differ. We measure variability by recognizing that large differences between actual and expected payoffs imply greater risk. This means that if we are given two choices and one has a high variability, we say that it is a higher risk. To calculate variability, we do the following. Given that sigma equals standard deviation, variability equals standard deviation squared. So therefore, variability equals probability of event 1 multiplied by income 1 take expected value squared plus probability of event 2 multiplied by income 2 take expected value squared. So we can state that if we have two prospective job offers and one has a higher variability than the other, then it is more risky. And given that most people don't like risk, we can conclude that most people would choose the job with lower variability as it has less risk where the expected value is the same. However, there are three different types of people when it comes to risk: risk-loving, risk-neutral, and risk-averse. The following graph shows the three different personality types. A risk-averse person has a diminishing marginal rate of utility as income increases. Risk-neutral is fixed and linear and is indifferent between certain and uncertain events. Risk-loving has an increasing marginal rate of utility as income increases. So let's see how this works in the real world. We have a person called Bob. Bob is a carpenter. He is risk-averse and he was wondering if he should start his own business or take a job under someone else. We can describe this situation for Bob on the following graph. As can be seen, if Bob decides to take a job under someone else, he will have a 100% chance of an income of $70,000 a year. This gives Bob a utility of 15. However, if Bob decides to start his own business, he has a 70% chance of earning $140,000, which gives him a utility of 20, or a 30% chance of earning $30,000 that gives him a utility of 10. Thus, to get the expected utility for Bob starting his own business, we calculate the following. Given that expected utility equals probability 1 times utility 1 plus probability 2 times utility 2, it gives us an outcome of 17 for Bob starting his own business. Therefore, Bob's utility for starting his own business is higher than if he gets a job under someone else, so Bob should start his own business. Another facet of life that risk aversion impacts upon is wealth creation decisions. As we sit here now, we all face many choices about how we want to live in the future and the best way in which we believe to achieve that goal. I'm sure all of you have a superannuation fund, but what other ways do we have of increasing our future wealth? We could invest in the share market, buy houses, start our own business, put our money in the bank. There is a multitude of options available, but how do we choose the right one for us? The question comes down to our risk aversion. Given the potential payoff of a certain outcome versus its risk, are we willing to invest? So given the following options of shares to purchase, which would you purchase today? As can be seen, common stocks give the highest rate of return with 11.9%, but are the most risky with a standard deviation of 20.4%. Long-term corporate bonds give us a 6.2% rate of return with an 8.3 risk level, while government bonds offer the lowest risk of 3.1 and the lowest rate of return with 3.7. Just looking at that, I would most likely invest in long-term corporate bonds, but I'm sure there are some of us who would choose something else. Thank you very much for watching.